Okay, today I'm working on teacher appreciation gifts, and I am making for our admins, one of which is her initials is LT, Leslie Tracy. I have cut this out of the Expressions Permanent Sparkle. So it's really pretty. It's got lots of sparkle by Expressions Vinyl. And so I just did this font. It's called Eccentric. And I just made a little square and made it into a diamond. So what I'm putting this on is I bought these little containers at Target a while ago. And they're kind of an interesting shape. So they're meant to go like this and sit on a table or something. So I thought of what I would do is put their initials right here and it could sit on their desk. So this is for teacher appreciation. These women have helped out my daughter for the last 6 years. She's graduating from 5th grade, and so I wanted to do something special for them. So what it's going to look like in the end is this. And what I did is it's meant to sit like this again, and so it can sit on their desk with the initials pointing out. And I took the lid, which to me is very boring looking, kind of fake silver looking. Let me get some better light here. And is kind of fake silver looking. And so what I did is I am taking some of the E6000 or whatever it's called, and I am putting a little jewel on the top. This is not just a cheap jewel. As you can see, it's got a little hole, it's actually set. I bought it it's called Stud Trim. Bought this at Joann's, and it is, they're supposed to be iron-on, but they were too big for what I needed to use, so I'm just going to use it for this instead. So when it's all said and done, when it is complete, I'm going to put my little jewel cap on here. It's not quite dry yet, but it's going to be really cute, I think. And you put the little thing on. And so that is my idea from our administrative days. So what I wanted to also talk about is, put this over here since it's not quite dry, is how to, since this is a curved surface, and I know a lot of people struggle with this, so I'm going to show what works for me. May not work for you, but it does work for me. So what I do is I have a very bendy ruler. Unfortunately, I broke a little piece of it, but this is very old. I used to use this at my job a long time ago. And what I do is I kind of start measuring across. Now, the minute it starts to curve, and this is what I do on glasses as well, the minute it starts to curve is where I know I should really stop. So in this, to me, it seems like the biggest round it should be is maybe, in between a 1 1/4 and 1 1/2, probably more like closer to 1 1/4. And then it's not as curved going this way, so I'm not going to worry as much about that. So again, I cut this. This is called Eccentric, made a little square. So I'm going to go ahead and get my transfer paper. Now, I did also come up with another little tip here, is if you have this type of transfer paper that has the grid on it, I noticed when I did this today that if you, my cut settings for 651 is 220. So I use the auto blade, but make sure I get that hair off there. So I noticed, let me see if I can get it to reflect in the light. There is on this a line, because I actually put a box and centered it let me try to get some better light over here, sorry. I actually drew a box around it when I cut it and centered that box around so I used the alignment center option to align my design in there. So as you can see, you can still see a little bit of the impression from the box, which is perfectly aligned to the design. So again, if you have that kind of, this kind of transfer paper that has the grid on it, what you can do is try. Transfer paper can be very challenging, but what I'm going to do is align this to that line there, which means my my grid lines will be centered on the design, which will make it easier to center on the glass container. So I'm going to try to do that. Now I'm doing everything on top of my light board just because I don't have a lot of space in my workspace. So this pretty much, and it probably shouldn't, but this pretty much stays here the whole time. All day, every day. Okay, I need to put this down apparently to do this. So what I'm going to do again, say that's the challenge with contact paper or transfer paper, is it's very static driven. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on. Hopefully I got that nice and straight. If it's not straight, just pick it up and put it down because you haven't burnished it yet. So go ahead and cut your design out. Go ahead and cut the excess out. Now it's important when you're doing it on a curved surface that you try, at least this is my experience again, that you try to get as much of the excess of this off as possible. So I'm going to cut all of this off, all the extra. So there we go. Okay, so I am going to burnish it a little bit. This is a pretty simple design, so thankfully I don't have to worry about how intricate it is. But you can see that I do have grid lines that will help me line up because I know this is straight. I also know this is straight and this is straight. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this off. Again, you do whenever you apply anything that is adhesive, you should always clean it. I am using 70%, what is this? 70% isopropyl alcohol. So I'm just gonna really rub this down because so that I remember, just go blow on it a little bit. I am infamous for putting things the wrong way. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set this down with that flat piece down. I'm gonna put it on the way it's gonna sit on their desk. So, and actually this, I also have a little tip. It's nice if you're working with a glass item to put it on top of your light board because it actually helps you see things a little bit better. So, especially since you're working with clear transfer paper or transfer tape. So let me get this burnished just a little bit. So I know this video is taking a little bit of time, so thank you for your patience because okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull my design off. Yep, came off pretty clear and clean, so that's good. Wow, and I even got lucky that the line's pretty much going straight through that diamond. Okay, so just like on any other, like HTV, sometimes on transfer tape, you can line it up in the middle, and that'll help you figure out where your middle mark is. In this case, the diamond is not necessarily centered. So what I'm going to do is I am going to look at that line, which is kind of hard to see, and I'm kind of eyeballing over the top so I can see where that's going to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to eyeball this and try to place it in the best possible center place. So kind of hard to do when you're looking through a camera. If you do a light enough touch, you can reposition it. Sometimes I really have to work with it to get it to be centered and to stay on there. Okay, I'm going to call that good enough. Now, when you are putting a design on, I always start with pushing in the center. Because again, if you start pushing in the center, you could theoretically, pull it this way, that way to try to get it centered again. I'm not sure if this is perfectly centered. Frankly, I'm not very good at that, but I'm gonna hope for the best here. So again, you could try to, if only the center is stuck down, you could also, again, move it around. So is that the way I like it? Yes, probably. Okay, I think right there. So I'm going to push the center down again. Now what I do, and this is really hard to imagine, I think, until you do it the first time. You can see again, my design is smaller and really stays on the top of that curve. So what I'm going to do is, and your transfer tape may buckle when you're doing this. That's okay. Don't worry about it. Just follow these directions. So what I do is I always start from the middle and push out. So I will focus on one side at a time. And what I kind of do is I kind of go like this. Now you can see that it's already buckling. The paper's already buckling there. That's okay. It doesn't matter if the paper buckles. It just matters that your design doesn't. So you can see that even though the transfer tape buckled, the design is down pretty nice and solid now. I always follow my lines. I'm kind of pushing out and down along this line at the same time. Again, you can see it's buckling, but that T is down there nice and straight. So let's work from the center out again. Okay, there we go. And I'm kind of pushing out and following that line at the same time. Okay, pushing out and down. Now the L you have to be careful of because it can kind of get skewed if you do it too much. The key here is when you are placing this, you don't want to just like start burnishing it right away. You really have to slowly position it. And this is true of ornaments or round things too. The other thing that I have had worked really successfully on small round ornaments is press and seal. I won't use it on other things, but I will use it on rounded ornaments just because it is so easy to place because it stretches and works. Now, when you are working with small designs like this, especially on a curve, it can be harder to burnish. So, and I am kind of a crazy burnisher. I want to make it look, stick around for a while, proverbially. So I always try to make sure that my edges and my tops are really well placed. But as you saw a second ago, it can be really challenging to do that. Just make sure that your points, again, you can see that the paper is buckled, but the design is straight. So don't worry about that. Okay, really try to get those edges. Now, another point is that I have, let me finish doing this part right here, is when you are going against the design, do not do it hard because it's very easy to push that design off center or to move it, so don't just be very careful when you are doing this. This is, slow and careful is definitely the name of the game on this. So now a lot of times I have a hard time pushing it down. So I will actually, instead of going like this, I will actually push it on its side. And I try not to push too hard on my light board because one of these days it's going to crack. But again, I kind of go at it from the side, making sure that those corners, and you can see that this paper is up, but that as long as that letter is lying flat, that's all that matters. So let's go ahead and really try to get those corners and everything really well done. Now, and again, you can see the tape's all kind of bubbly and everything, so let's pull it off and see. Now, already you can see that even though the paper was bubbly, the letter is nice and straight. Let's go ahead and pull it down. This has a benefit that it is a nice, simple. Now, you saw that letter pulled up, probably because this is all scrunched up right here. Really got to make sure that those edges of the letters are down because those are the ones that can get caught on things and pull up easily. So, and since it came off that way, I'm going to pull the opposite way now, just to make sure it stays on there. And there we go. Now again, nice and flat, not any problems. If there are little bubbles, I don't see any bubbles at all. If there are little bubbles, you can use hair dryer. Some people, if they're really big bubbles, they use a pen and kind of put a little hole in there and then use the hair dryer or just pressure to push it down. So I'm very pleased with how that came out. I'm going to put the jewel on the top, and I think that's going to make a really cute little gift once I put some candy in it. So couple tips there. Hope it helps. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.